the letter right now it's a courtesy letter, explains that we're aware that there's been a damage with no call. And, you know, one of the things I want to add to it is we're curious as to why it is that you might not call, because that's the issue. I mean, you know, CGA will tell you it's like 25% roughly of the damages that they know about were what they call a no-call damage. And they, for years, tried to say it had to do with raising awareness about 811 and that, and we know that's not true. So what we're really trying to do is discover the psychology behind why a city or municipality or somebody would not call. What are the circumstances around that? So I'm going to try to sort of soften the land with this round of letters, let people know that we will be sending out a survey. And we hope that when they see that they'll recognize it and participate. It'll be anonymous. We're just really trying to figure out why it might be that they wouldn't. And so that kind of covers the damages issue as far as that goes.
So there was just a quick question along those lines for you. In that category that you mentioned, is that an overall, if someone did not have a valid locate ticket, such as if the ticket expired by 4 hours or 1 day, they would actually drop into that category?
Yeah, they have some subclasses in that, and within the CGA, that particular chunk, some of the things that I believe are really actually excavator damages. In other words, driven by their behavior versus a ticket being issued or not issued. I think that they expanded that to include some of those areas that you're talking about. And yet it's still in that same 25%. And when CGA talks about it, they talk about it as being a no notification made. And that's the problem, because I know for a fact that that's not the case. Because when we look at our numbers, when you look at actually what, let me see if I can pull that up over here. Another screen on that, but we run anywhere between 6% of no calls. Now it's being reported by the excavators, so you have to take that as a caveat. Most of the excavators that are going to report probably did have a ticket and they know to call and that kind of thing. But I do think that they class some of that stuff, mix it into the pie. And I really want to make sure that we start to tease that out, because it's one thing to say that we're not saturating the market with messaging that people don't know, but that's really hard to believe at this point. I mean, especially given the high percentage of contractors in the survey that NUCA did, shows a very high excavator recognition of what they're supposed to do. So it's a choice in a lot of these cases, and that's what we have to really try to figure out. Is it a depth thing? Is it a lack of confidence in the system in some way? Is it, is it just purely, I want to get this job done because I got to get paid. I want to try to get a jump on it. I'm not going to take my time. I don't know. And hopefully we'll find some of that out. So that's kind of it.
From our point of view, our numbers could possibly be in there. And it's only because, it's onesie twosies. We don't have that many of them, but it could be that we have a contractor who they were 4 feet outside their ticket area. They realized that they set their equipment up, they put the rig down, and it actually went down into a utility when they were actually entering inside the zone. So that's one where it's like geographically, it wasn't right. We do education on that, and hopefully they don't do that again. And then the other one is, okay, guys, you knew you were going to be running late that day, and it was going to be running over. You got to get a new ticket, you got to refresh or whatever else. So that's noise in the system, because we're taking care of those and making sure those don't happen. But as far as if anybody ever says that you do research and you see the Metronet actually has no locate ticket, no, it's one of those other situations because they know.
And it's a sub working for you anyway. I doubt your name would maybe show up in the initial list. Working for, yeah. They're going to get a letter just like everybody else. It's just, again, these are just courtesy letters. They just really just say, hey, just so you know, because I out of the 100 or so I send in a quarter, maybe 150 kind of is what was going out. I get maybe 3 or 4 calls, and my number's on there. And it was like the city of Asheville called at one point, and it was their safety person. And he was like, well, I'm concerned about where was the damage and what was the circumstance. And I explained it. And he goes, oh yeah, I know exactly what that was. And then that was an education opportunity for them internally. If I wish more of those people would, I don't want 150 calls, but I wish more of those folks would call to maybe get more information about it. But seeing that those numbers are ticking down a little bit in the state. I think Mark Worth mentioned it, I know at least, and you showed it as well. I think it was the percentage numbers of those no-call damages.
Quarter, yeah.
We're kind of just starting to chip down just a little bit. You know, you got to hit it from all sides, everywhere we can. So.
Would any of those be like, for like, somebody working for like a homeowner or something, and like the homeowner would call a ticket, but the actual excavator would have a ticket? I get a lot of those kind of calls where they try to tell people like, the homeowner is not the one, if they're not doing the work, the excavator is the one that needs the ticket kind of thing. But
Yeah, we see this happen, and we say the same thing to every homeowner. You know, if somebody's doing work for you in your yard, doing a fence or whatever, they need to bear that responsibility because it comes back to you otherwise.
Just had one private locator, Lowe's was putting in the fence. Lowe's contracts out to third parties. They're saying the homeowner had to call the ticket in.
Right.
I educated the homeowner that whoever's doing the actual physical excavation is the one that needs to do the ticket calling. But the homeowner, I had him go ahead and call it anyway because we're not sure Lowe's third-party vendor is going to call.
yeah,
And these are the guys that, you know, oh, we're just working for Lowe's. Who calls it in? Does Lowe's do it? Home Depot, or does it the excavator? They're supposed to be educated better than that.
So, and I'll just address that question. I am working with Lowe's with that gentleman, and he was given a full flyer about fences and the responsibility of the excavator. So I know Lowe's is educating now. You know, once again, it's a good opportunity to probably reach back out again.
Yeah, I'm having to educate the homeowners as well, because they're being told by Lowe's that they have to call.
yeah. And we
So
certainly
it's
don't want,
a way for
Yeah.
Lowe's to get around the system.
certainly don't want 3 tickets, that's just.
Right, no,
You
and
got
that
homeowner
was-
calling in,
yeah.
Lowe's calling
Yeah,
in,
because
and-
Yeah.
these, you know,
Yeah.
if something does happen.
Well, I didn't do it. I didn't call the ticket.
Just this, Mark, just to give us a little bit of numbers from me. Of course, occupants, and then no name given because they took off after they hit us. But we've only had 12 other people that have hit us more than once without having a locate ticket. And those are home builders, graders, and landscapers.
Yeah.
You saying the same company hitting you more than once without a ticket?
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the top one was 4, and the bottom, a bunch of them are 2 without a ticket. But that's the groups that you see are home builders, grading companies, and landscapers.
Mark, is that for
And-
this year so far?
What?
Is that for this year so far, or is that like last year?
That's 22 numbers.
Last year.
And we ran just about 26% from no ticket last year, and that's probably our lowest number.
Hmm.
We had a good year last year, by the way. Our lowest damage ratio.
Yay, that's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
Keep up the good work.
And that's Trevor and Richard doing that.
Yeah, they have damage prevention specialists.
Yeah.
Yeah. Richard's on the phone. So good job, Richard.
Thank you. I can't take full credit. All I can say is it wasn't that way before I got here, though.
Richard, you're supposed to, don't throw yourself under the bus. Louis, while we're talking about those damages, do you want to mention about adding the additional drop downs for reporting of damages to try to get that root cause, or?
Yeah, so one of the things that when we look at the CGA third information, one of the things that they're really concerned about is the quality. Okay, so if somebody doesn't tell, they're in the report that they file, if they don't indicate what the root cause is, then it's just not captured. And then the quality is low as a result. That's the biggest weight that they put on it when they measure the quality, is whether there was a root cause listed. Well, truthfully, as we tell people, look in the mirror to understand what your contribution is here. And I know for a fact that in the last couple of years, NC has been probably one of those folks with a lower mid quality, about 50, because we're not capturing all those root causes. We weren't capturing all those root causes, but we are now. And we put in a special software change with a Dropbox to make sure that the CSRs are capturing that information, so that we can raise up our quality. Now, the problem is we're gonna have a nice full year of 2023 data, but we're probably not gonna have that much. Our quality is still gonna suffer in 2022, but you gotta take the steps somewhere. So what we've done is obviously we've mapped these root causes to the root causes that CGA tracks, so that when that goes in, it'll match up and help the larger quality batch and contribute when they try to determine on a national level, where these breakdowns come down on the root causes. So we're happy about that. That's an important piece. I will tell you something else, sort of along those lines. Well, actually, I'll wait till we get into the Ahmed report, because it's something, it was a recommendation he made in here that we're going to follow up on. So I'll wait till we get to that part of it. But I know this is a pretty loose kind of casual conversation situation when we talk about these top 20 reports and update reports. I'm going to tell you, updates are still a problem, and they're actually going up. As are 3-hour notices. When I put together the board presentations for these things and I get all the data together and I look at it, I always have to shake my head, because I compare this year to last year in the same quarter and what was the year like and everything. And those two areas are ticking up. So the purpose, obviously, of these update reports in the top 20 is to see if there's opportunities here for education, essentially, to try to understand why there's so many updates. We understand that there's going to be multiple updates for tickets. That's just the nature of the beast. It's actually a requirement under the law for the excavator to call in if the work's going to continue. But what we're trying to do is eliminate things like the work's done and yet it's still being updated, or work's not permitted yet, but it's already been issued and updated a couple of times. It's a process issue in some of these cases. So when we look at like the middle of this top 20 is the one that I'm mostly interested in, when it's 1 day or less duration, but it's 2 or more updates. And so the updates, extend by 15 working days. So now you've effectively had 45 working days to do a job that you, Mr. or Ms. Excavator, told us was going to take you a day or less. Why is that? There's some process issue there. And we have had meaningful conversations with some of the people on this list and discovered there were some process issues internally. Maybe it's a disconnect between the field and the person who's putting it in. In some cases, we believe that folks were maybe even directed to start the process with 811 even in advance of them starting to get the actual permanent work or the work order in place. And some of these things we don't have any control over this. The best we can do is identify it, talk to these folks and try to figure out if they can understand what they're contributing to this noise. This is just a month. And in just a month, I mean, you're looking at well over 1,000, maybe 1,200 or so. I don't know, just glancing at this, that's 6, that's 9, you're talking about maybe even 1,500 in that center class here of 2 or more with a day or less. And that's something that we draw attention to every time we have one of these meetings every couple of months to try to see what we can do to draw that down.
I find it interesting, if I take a look at your third column there, and you were to take a look at fiber builds, depending on who actually answers the question, you could actually add a lot of those categories together.
Yes.
And that's a huge number.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things that CGA wrestles with too. They have telecom and cable TV. It's 2 different classes in orange. And I lump them together in my numbers whenever I associate them, because they make up about 60% or more of the reported damages that we know of in the state. And of course, what's being damaged mostly is telecom cables. So it's just, and that hasn't changed in the course of multiple years. Even before, it used to be really water work was one of the prime things, and it still is up there. Yeah, but it's surpassed it, at least in this state. As a result, at least that's what's being reported again.
So, I mean, that's one category where if anybody ever wants to talk about it and pursue making an impact in the fiber build area, there are some inherent things with fiber builds. I think that would be a great topic of discussion to see how we could possibly impact those contractors to see if they could change some bad habits.
And the quality with the actual implementation of it, more or less, like we're talking HDD quality, like running the equipment or driving in the fiber, or
So
what?
the reason for being on this list, I would say that the reason that they're on this list.
Oh, for the updates.
Yeah, for the updates. Yeah, I would say there are a lot of issues with that one. And one is, sometimes one of the issues is poor planning, and the other one is trying to cheat the system because they're moving so fast. Fiber builds moving so fast causes a lot of issues. And so, either they can't plan well enough in advance because of the fast moving of it, or they're actually, whatever was it just.
Well, they're putting in more work areas just in case they can't get
Yes,
something done, so they can expand into an area.
Exactly. That and the third option is also because contractors move from company to company all the time, or they're getting fired or whatever else. And so when they enter tickets in like we used to, now we're just doing what you guys had suggested in North Carolina. But okay, now we got to actually call in new locates for these guys and updates, and it's just all sorts of crazy things that are going on with fiber builds because of how fast they move.
And because you're utilizing multiple contractors.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's a whole handful of them, multiple handfuls that are potentials that could be doing work. It kind of turns a little bit into the Wild West out there. And it goes back to that thing we're talking about, even with homeowners and other people doing work. Who's taking responsibility for it and is willing to take the responsibility for it from a liability standpoint too?
Go ahead, Chris.
So,
On the tip of your tongue.
so VeteranNet does a really good job at project management. They're managing their crews, they're managing the work. Fiber projects move at a quick speed. So that's one set of issues because they're moving so fast. But when they're calling in work that they're, to have a plan B or a plan C, that is creating noise in the system that keeps, the good tickets from having paint on. Then when you go over to some of these other companies that are doing, let's say they're doing a power build in a subdivision, they're going to be there for, maybe 2 weeks. Maybe it's a huge subdivision, going to be there for a month. Don't call in the entire subdivision, call in what you can get done in the life of the ticket. Therefore, when you get it done, you don't have to update it. A lot of the companies, and this is a national problem, we see it everywhere. And in states where the regulatory authority is engaged in looking at, late tickets, there's confusion and lack of education to contractors, to some utilities and to regulators that, if we have an unlimited ability to call in tickets with no ownership for how many you call in, whether you work the ticket or not, then, those are the very ones complaining that utility companies or contract locators or whoever's doing the locates are late. But if you've got, let's just say 10,000 tickets and you're only going to work 6,000, which 6,000 do we locate?
Right. Yeah, because then you got to make a choice. And again, I agree, this communication has to happen on the ground between the actual people who are on the equipment and the locators. I mean, we've talked about this before. We've seen evidence of successful projects where that communication was happening thorough. But all it takes is one little breakdown between some of the people in the field on a particular spot or location. And then people start, again, pointing fingers. Well, you just do everything I tell you you're going to do. And that communication falls apart. And then you get to those situations too, where, like you said, they scope creep or expanding to these other areas because I don't trust that you're going to get it done.
And a lot of times, you know, in the industry, we talk about the contractor and the excavators. But honestly, many times that onus is on the utility who has let that job out and who is allowing the contractor to call in as much as they want to call. They have no idea what they call in. They just know that they haven't met a deadline, or they know that, you know, there's a contractor sitting at home because they don't have paint. But how much other stuff was painted?
Or they may put a bunch of pressure on their contractors to just, the only question they want to know is, do you have a valid ticket?
Yeah.
And if that's the priority, then they're gonna make sure they have valid tickets for anywhere they might break ground.
That's what Mining Services is doing right now, across Iredell County and down into Mecklenburg, where they've got so much going on. They called in 150 tickets on projects, but locators like USIC and so forth don't know which 150 they're gonna be working on. And they tried to work with Mining Services, and oh yeah, we'll set up a meeting, and then there'll be a no-show. You've got those contractors that are making it difficult for guys to get paint on the ground because they don't want to be bothered with having a meeting. So you run into that issue as well, and it's not, most contractors don't like that. You're gonna have those contractors that are just gonna make it tough on everybody.
Well, and it goes back to that thing too about that on the ground communication. If they're calling in both sides of the road, their fiber is not truly gonna be on both sides of the road. So it's more of a CYA, and if they would work with the locators, you cut the amount of actual work they have to do in half if you're truly letting them know where you're gonna go. And they're a huge asset to the excavator if they can share with them where their best path may be.
But that goes back, don't call in that many tickets
Right,
if you're not gonna do that much work in 15 days.
true.
That way, when you update, you only have to update
The
And
segment.
if you are gonna do that, like some utility companies aren't managing the process, I call in the entire neighborhood, well, that's fine. I mean, that's gonna happen, but don't update the entire neighborhood if you've got half of it done.
Right.
But for that to happen, the people who are putting in the tickets have to be in direct communication with what's been done every day. And then really I feel like it's that pecking bird thing, you know, where you just end up, somebody's on autopilot in the office. And again, their mandate is don't let us hang out to dry here with no ticket. That's their mandate.
They'll highlight everything and then hit.
Yeah. Cause So we're all, I mean, we're all preaching to the choir on this issue. This is one of those ones where, I'm not sure where the answer lies in this. You could take each individual company here, look at them, have communications about them. You can look who the master is for these companies, and maybe they have some influence or some sway to put a thumb down and stop some of this. But that's really where the rubber hits the road on that one. Got to happen from the people who are overseeing these jobs, and it's that's really where it comes from. All we can do is put a spotlight on it at this point in this venue. Now, legislation is one of those things. I know, Chris, you're talking about how, what other kind of areas can be done. We're very reticent to even get into the law, changing it at this point because of the law of unintended consequences in opening it. But at some point, we probably will need to do that. And I don't know if it's 2024. I think we pretty much determined we didn't see a need to do it this year. But we should be compiling the items that we feel like needed clarification and perhaps tightening, so we have that laundry list ready to go when the time does come, in my opinion. Get off my soapbox now.
I do know, looking at the list there, I mean, it's a lot of our contractors. And we're actually trying to get something set up to meet with one of them there, in person to kind of talk with them to see what the deal is. But I do know, and I understand what we're talking about, don't call in more than you need to, but if the guys have their tickets to go do the job. If one person doesn't respond, then that job gets basically descheduled until we can get a response from that utility. And then once that response occurs, then the job gets scheduled again, but it still could be a couple of days after that response actually made. And we've had a few issues with a couple of folks in certain areas where it's just, the positive response was entered incorrectly. So they entered a code 40 instead of a code 10. Even the simple thing like that is going to delay. It could be a week delay because if the crew's going out that next day or whatever, and they can't because of that response, it gets descheduled. It could be another week before it gets back on the schedule before it cycles back in. So I think it's kind of a delicate balance for sure with, some of
And that
these.
affects that middle column.
Yep.
Primarily, yeah.
Now, on the first column, we do have some new contractors on here with that ATMC build that has not been on there in the past. So, that kind of tells us we got some, some aggressive builds going on. There's a new one here, Dan, and this is you guys for the Brink contractors, constructors, and they're just doing nothing but pole sets. I mean, over in Alamance and Vance County, it looks like. And then this NC Communications, they're working over in Wake and Durham for you guys. So,
I didn't know that.
yeah.
I think they were for pipe.
Oh, really? Well, it was showing work being done for Duke.
Yeah.
Don, B&A and Bigham, both are, well, Don agrees to it, not Don Knight. Charter and Spectrum, got those on there for you guys. Of course, they're not huge amounts, but, and then Piedmont Utilities actually working for TEP. And so that's the number 2, which I went back and looked at October too, and all of that is pretty much still the top 6 are still pretty much staying about the same. Utility, Piedmont, Ansco, of course, and I do send Tim a list each month now, or excuse me, every other month. And he works with his team on tickets. We kind of created him a little extra report so that it would help him with his work order numbers, correct?
Yeah, that's right. It helps with the job numbers.
Job numbers.
There's quite a few, you try to manually search through all those tickets.
Yeah.
It takes some time. But once you can pull out the remark sections, then it decreases the amount of time to do the research for sure. But it's definitely been helping us. It's something that, gets in front of us that we can actually see right in front of us, with the volume of work, it's very easily to let some of this get by you. So it ain't like you're dealing with, 10, 20 tickets.
Well, and one of the things that we can help, hopefully, you guys to do is in the form of these reports. So these reports we've been punching out every single 2 months. But if there's something like you said, like a job number related to ticket numbers or some other way that you want to cross-reference things, you need to let us know. And that's, George, I know is the same thing. He reached out to Leslie. We'd like to see such and such. I think the same holds true for Lumen and these other folks that would like to see specific types of things. We have to, meaning NC811, we have to be made aware of what it is that it's going to make your process go easier to do the research to be able to get in on top of it. And that, like I said, that holds true as well for situations like with Lumen, for example. They've been really good about letting us know if they see an RTE user, for example, abusing the system or putting in way too much area or being unclear, or whatever it is, not gridding it. And that helps us go back, cycle through, get those people corrected or booted, one of the two. So we rely heavily on the input from you guys to help us give you the reports that you can use most effectively. And I've said this at all these meetings, I think, if there's some report that you think of that's going to be meaningful to this group, let us know what the structure of that looks like. Let us know what you're trying to find, and we'll make sure to have it here as part of this.
You easy to add a fourth column to this and show the top 20 or however many work done for, so that we can actually see who the actual owner is of a lot of these?
Yeah, we could definitely do that. One of the things that we discovered, I guess, through the last 3 or 4 years of doing this is most of the people here at the table, they recognize their companies that are working for them, and they're pretty much around here, around the bulk of them. But we could do that. But one of the things we really were careful when we formed this committee was not to try to throw anyone particularly under the bus. And it's easy to do. You could cross the line. Like you said, it's a fine balance to where you could be highlighting or pointing something out. And we don't want to, we're not looking to body shame anybody. Let's just say that around. But it wouldn't be a bad thing if we did have that, at least make it aware. We do send these out to the top 5 because they're the ones who have the top 5 companies in terms of volume in the state. They're the ones that gave us the permission to use their tickets for this purpose. So they review all this each time. We
Yeah,
send
they
it
get to
direct
see
them.
all the data.
And they know who their
Yeah.
companies are, and they do make up the.
Yeah. Like just Tim's, for instance, all he sees is just Ann's code tickets. But it's Charter, Duke, Piedmont Natural Gas, AT&T.
We have a question?
Yeah, this is Jason with Brightspeed.
Go ahead.
Hey, Jace.
Hey, Lewis. Just you kind of alluded to a minute ago, I think, when you said, there's always the legislative aspect of the update tickets. And I was curious. I know before I left Lumen, we had just got Ohio to add that, is this, that little checkbox, update only ticket or need paint. And we were able to add that in Ohio. And I understand that many states share the same process, like the systems that NC 811 uses might be duplicated almost identically in 4 other states, for example. I don't know if Ohio and North Carolina share the same, but I was wondering how has any progress been made since the last time I've joined y'all that would allow our system, without going the legal route, to add that option for contractors to say, no, need paint, or no, this update is just an update only. Because in my experience, that chasing the ghosts is the problem that leads to everything else, the emergencies, the no-shows, the everything else, because the locators are tied up chasing ghosts tickets. So giving at least, then there's still all the education that goes around it, but at least giving the excavator up front to say, listen, you are required by law to put in an update ticket if you're not done in that area. But you don't have to engage everybody's resources when you do it every single time unless you need to. Well, that's what that option is. And like you said, that with the update tickets still clocking up we address the biggest abusers of it, and the numbers kind of go down a little bit. But then, just like you said, Lewis, we're not giving, I believe, in my opinion, the contractors the right tool to make this work. And I think it's a small thing, but I wish I had the numbers from Ohio to say how successful, before that and then after that to demonstrate to y'all, but I don't have that data yet. But I'm just wondering, have we made any opportunities with that or conversations with that?
No, but there's two practical considerations with this that I'm unclear about. So the excavator is going to have to respond for every utility, whether they need paint, right?
Well, it's on the update ticket itself is just one of the lines is paint.
But see, that's not right, because they don't, either they have to go in and identify who they need paint for, or you're assuming that all the paint's going to stay fresh for everybody. you're either doing one or the other. Let's say it's 5-to-1 ratio. All 5 members. Do you need paint for all 5 members? It's kind of like the 3-hour notice. We try to restrict the 3-hour notice only to those people who did not respond. Okay. And that's helpful if the excavator tells us. So the first thing is, how do you tease apart 5-to-1 and only tell one of the 5 that we're good on your paint, but we still need the other 4?
It's not, you can't, it's all or
You
none.
can't. One,
So
it's
you
all or
say,
nothing.
I don't need any paint, or I do need one paint, which means I need them all. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so the
the
second thing is-
caveat, but it's still effective, I think. But yeah.
Well, let's see if it's effective. I'm curious to see, like you said,
Oh.
if you don't have any numbers to really match up, because the second part of this practicality is, if we're having a hard enough time getting contractors to even understand if the work started or stopped, how much are we going to get engagement on them to identify marks and come back and tell us if the marks are, needed or not needed? Right now it's a clear cut, either, the ticket is updated or it's not updated. I'm not saying that it'd be an interesting thing to see how Ohio's experiment, I'll call it, works out. And we do use the same Northfield system that Ohio
Okay.
uses.
Okay,
But that
that's what
doesn't
I
mean
was
ours
wondering.
looks exactly the same, because we have different, different law and everything else, different
Right.
requirements. But practically how that would work and how we would educate around that, I think it's a challenge. I'd be curious to talk to Roger and his team up there in Ohio and see directly how that's working.
Yeah, that's my plan too, Louis, to use that as either the example of do or don't. But it's going to be one of the few opportunities where we see the before and the after, because I do know several states have already adopted that, but I don't have data for them. But I'm hopeful I'll be able to pull some data for Ohio. But just like you, I'm going to reach out to them and ask them how are they proving their success. and
How
things
long
like
have
that.
they been doing this for, Jason?
We were talking about it before I left in August. And then when I reached back to Ryan Egan and Lumen, he said it's done. So it's probably in this December timeframe, but it could just be, I heard about it in December. It might've been a month or two before that.
Yeah, it's the first I've even heard of this, so, but we'll do a little look into it.
Great. That's
See if we can
great.
find out about it.
Thank
We
you.
can ask. We can rally the troops on the line there. I think Jim Collins might be
Oh, yeah,
on.
Jim Collins should know.
Tony Chan might be on too. Thought I saw him earlier.
Is Jim still with us? Yeah, there's 18 other
Yeah.
people.
Are y'all familiar with, that update thing? Put on the spot.
Yeah, right.
Let's just pause here for a minute and just let it soak in there.
Jim and Tony, you guys are on mute. Any thoughts?
That's okay. We can follow up. If it is December, I mean, it
Yeah,
just.
it just did start. I mean, you're gonna need at least a quarter's worth of data to make it even meaningful, but yeah, it's one of those things that'd be interesting to follow up on and see if how it's practically being used in the field, and is it actually reducing updates?
Yeah.
Because some things we talk about doing, whether you're extending the life of it or the ticket or some of those things, I think it's a temporary quick fix. And then it just fills in the gaps, the volume. There'll be other ways if you try to change a ticket or do away with the other updates. There's other ways that people can fill in the gap and just make a new ticket if they feel like they're not being covered in some way for that particular job. So we look into it. That's
Yeah, and even if they do it that way, what type of positive response is being used? And the responsibilities that are falling on the members to.
Yeah, that's a
I mean,
great
it requires-
question,
that-
man. I
that
forgot
requires a
to
really-
ask that.
Yeah, that requires a whole lot of true understanding of where every mark was when it started. Are they all there now, 2 weeks later, 15 days later, 12 days later?
Chris?
Well,
This-
I
this
know that
process.
they started doing the South Carolina. I don't, from a positive response, you don't put paint down, you can't put mark. to be put clear, and I mean.
Well, and that's just it. They had to have created some sort of new positive response code and to meet that.
I'm just getting involved with Ohio, so.
So South Carolina's doing it? You
They
said?
changed the ticket types last year, when they switched systems.
Really?
Version remark, they don't need paint.
Update allegedly doesn't need paint,
Yeah.
remark.
Allegedly.
Okay, so they have update and remark?
Yeah.
Okay.
Allegedly.
Oh, so they have two different types of ticket. One is a remark ticket and one is an update ticket. You don't paint on the update and you don't close the remark without painting. Okay.
Wish paint, but you're not, I mean, they're saying that it's not necessarily needed. But you can't send a positive response to this, I mean, that you have a marked utility if you don't put paint down.
Right.
Be curious to see what Ohio comes. I think it might even be longer than it might be like a year with it, because then you can get into like the damage piece of it. If you-
Yeah.
somebody's-
Yeah.
It's almost like they're pre-screening it, you know, it's not like a pre-screen.
It's hard to tell, like you said, it's hard to just take a snapshot or a slice of it and really know anything. You're right. You need almost a year's worth of data to say, well, here's where we were last year. At this time, did it really, come down considerably for the same month at the same time? Because if you start doing a quarter to it becomes difficult, but that's an interesting take on it. We always, the system changes that we make, and first of all, any positive response changes get made, they have to run through the board of directors for NC 811. And we haven't typically put in any changes. I think the last one we did was a 32. That sound right?
Yes. Okay.
The railroad one, actually, we did that railroad code for them to be able to,
I think both of those were done at the same time, were they not?
I think the 32 was done prior to that.
Okay, yeah.
But,
45.
Yeah, but so that's one of the issues with the positive response. And ticket types, it would be the same thing. We couldn't just throw out a new ticket type without it going through legislative committee and board of directors and all that kind of stuff. But it's interesting. Good conversation. Which does bring us over to, I guess, the 3-hour report. Again, this is just informational, but what we've done with this report, encouraging folks to take a look at it in the areas that you would be in, are to look and see what the percentage of those tickets are in terms of 3 hours versus the total number of tickets. Are they going up? Or are they going down in terms of the percentages? And I really haven't had a chance to analyze this. Is this sorted?
Yeah, so it's only
It's sorted.
sorted by the December,
By December?
and by the county.
Okay,
So
by the
we just look
percentage
at
and by the
percentage
percentage.
by the county
highest
just
to
for
lowest.
December.
Gotcha.
So, 3 hours versus the ticket ratio, or updates versus tickets.
Yeah, the small
Really
volume ones are,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, a lot of smaller. Because
Durham sticks out a little bit when you look at it. Only because
Yeah,
October
right.
was, at 8%, but then it came down to 6 November, and then it's going back up again to 7. But if you look back historically, it was more like 4.
Mhm.
It seems like it's creeping up in Durham. And this doesn't tell us the why necessarily. It just
Right.
gives us gives you the
Yeah.
trend.
Yeah. We just have to dig down into the data of what's going on in that area during that time.
One of the issues with that created by third-party collection companies, or claims companies, or some utility companies, is if they damage utility in less than a 3-hour call in, then they're gonna hold them accountable. So you have some excavators who are calling in more work than they can do. Like we talked about with the updates.
Mhm.
And then when those tickets come due, if they don't have a positive response, 11 o'clock at night or midnight, you're gonna get, you know, they got 1,000 tickets on a job, 1,000 3-hour tickets, and they may not hit that ticket for another 2, 3, 4 weeks. I'm not sure you can always look at 3-hour notices as a true indicator of anything.
Well, the only way I would think it would make sense is if we're really trying to match up like to like. So in other words, it's not really just the percentages, it's the sheer volume of tickets. So if you're looking at large volume like Wake versus Mecklenburg, you know, now you're getting sort of apples to apples, at least in the numbers, not necessarily what work is going on there. That's the question on the why. What would, you know, a difference of 1.5% versus, you know, 6%, doesn't seem like a lot, but, you know, from a proportional standpoint, it can be, especially with that kind of volume. But I think you almost have to class these in groups. Maybe that would be the better thing to do, to take volumes, when we make this report, and do groups of volumes. And I don't know what we would start with, but obviously the smallest to, you know, make some range, and then have maybe 4 or 5 ranges of volumes, and then break these down like this and look and see the trends. I don't know. I'm just spitballing on this one to try to figure out what we can make with this.
Ann, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I had an issue with my microphone, so I've been trying to chime in. I think a lot of the 3-hour tickets, especially for Mecklenburg County, is, and I was trying to chime in when we was talking about the update tickets, you know, for the duration of 1 day or so and all of that. All of those are kicking in, and these locators are bombarded with tickets. I mean, Mecklenburg County, I haven't seen the numbers yet for last month, but I'm sure they're still right around the 30,000 tickets. Don's shaking his head. So I feel like with all of these unnecessary update tickets, these locators are going out, getting done what they can get done in a hurry so that they can move on to the next ticket. They're missing some things, and that's where these 3-hour tickets are coming in. And Chris, I think that's you sitting back there, buddy. I am not bashing the locators. Y'all don't have enough money for me to be one, and I wouldn't have your job. But until people, just like Sam Gonzalez used to say from day one, until people start cleaning their own house, we're going to have this issue. And I just feel like, and Lewis, I know that we've reached out to these companies that's doing this and everything else. I don't know the other alternative besides figuring out some way to find them or something. You know, as I was saying, until you hit somebody in their pocketbook, they're not going to do anything. And it's just, it's hurting the contractors that do what they're supposed to do. And I'll even circle back and say, until we get more contractors involved with these UCCs, a lot of this isn't going to go away either. And that communication deal that you were saying is spot on. You've got some contractors that has great communication with the locators that they work with, and you know, can say, hey, right now we're just in this area. Just worry about this right now, and you can move on to your next one. Then you do have all of those others out there that when that locator calls trying to work with them, they say, I just need you to mark what's on that ticket, and not try to work together. That's that whole communication thing that I still feels like goes back to getting more participation in these UCC meetings to where these relationships are made and everybody works together better.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
And I'm like you, I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, I mean, you know, the thing about this committee is obviously everybody here shows up regularly. It's the same people. We're committed to trying to figure out what we can do to make the process work better. You know, enforcement is that one piece, obviously, legislation would be another. Education is what we really lean mostly into. Is there specific kinds of education that we can provide? And then we'll talk about how we can get that education to the right people. Because one of the pieces I'm going to talk about when we get to the survey data is about that. But we've done the letters thing, like you said. We sent out a batch of letters. And I think that opened up the door for a couple of good opportunities, I think, with Moztec. And who was the other? Was it Pike? You guys went and saw?
No, well, we met with Moztec a long time ago.
Yeah, that was years ago. It would have been 3 years
Not
ago.
seeing them on the list. Been a while.
I did want to ask real quick, Lewis, these columns, they correlate with each other, right? So if the utility line has 3,500, the updates 2 or more times, are 308 of those included
I'm sorry,
in that 3,500?
which one are you looking at?
So just the
Yes,
utility line?
yes.
Yeah.
No, yes, they are.
So they're part of the 308 is part of that 35.
Yes, it's a subset of that, absolutely.
It was PF Plumbing that we worked with back in the summer, and they've not been back on the report since.
Mhm. Wasn't there a landscaping company that was up pretty high on there for a while, and I think y'all reached out to them and
Well,
Too, that was that one.
Evergreen's one of them, but they consistently still stay and they toggle back and forth, but Evergreen Landscaping, they do a lot of grading, I think. So, and Tammy's met with them several times and they're just a hard nut to crack. Because of, and it kind of boils back to contracts, they're required to, keep it updated until the project's done or until that silt fencing comes down. I mean, there's many different reasons to why people keep those things updated.
well, it goes back, is the field personnel communicating with the lady in the office that's got it on her calendar to update these tickets every 2 weeks also to let her know that the project's completed and it
Right.
don't need to be updated.
To me, it all boils back to project communication, project management. The more you can manage the projects and I mean, I myself have been participating in a project of installing fiber in my neighborhood, and I'm amazed at the lack of communication on these projects. And so I finally got to see what it's really truly like out in the field. And it's an interesting perspective because there are so many pieces of that puzzle that need to come together. And we've done on-site communication, and the minute we walk away from it, it just seems like it just falls apart. It seems everybody's on the same page, but it's like, I mean, I'm sure just like we're here today.
Walk out the door.
We walk out the door and what's next on our agenda, on our calendar. So there's, it's constant. I think Bob Wallace has his hand up. Hey, Bob.
There, I hope y'all can hear me all right. I'm like my brother there, microphone issues.
There you go. We can hear you.
Yeah, Louis, question for you, sir. I don't disagree with anything anyone said, but the discussion about the 3-hour tickets and prompted a question in my mind. Is there a possibility of running an analysis to determine this 3-hour ticket? What's its history? Was it updated several times, or is it, a new ticket and, just never got marked by everybody? You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah. That is something I wanted to dig down more into. Not just whether or not it was a new ticket or if it was updated once or twice or where the frequency level is, but even the companies. that are responding to a 3-hour notice because they failed to hit the thing. But it goes back to what we said before about kind of walking that fine line. The companies hopefully are looking internally and know if they're failing to meet certain objectives and that kind of thing. But you can break down these 3-hour notices by, like you said, by their history. Also by the number of people that are notified on a 3-hour notice, because we're trying again to discriminate only to let those go out to the people who didn't mark. So those tickets that are 3 hours that went out to 5 people versus 1 or 2, are those more likely to result in another update because of another delay? You know, there's other pieces of that we can probably tease out by just subcategorizing out these 3 hours.
Right, okay, thank you. It just occurred to me, I didn't know if y'all had attempted that analysis or not. Earlier when you mentioned our update volume, I'm gonna double check and dig a little deeper myself. The feedback I'm constantly getting is that they're updating because of the same issue with not getting everything marked, but it is a ongoing issue that we're all facing. And you know, the comment made earlier about hitting these folks with fines. I do know that, as you do, Louis, when I first started with all of this several years ago, we pulled all the contractors into your conference center there. And I told them straight up that their abuse of the system with calling in update tickets unnecessarily was costing them money.
Yes.
And I framed it that, they're caught, I don't remember what their participation was in that, but the cost of update tickets to Segra that first year was almost $500,000. And I related it to them this way: that's 6 projects you guys won't get this year because we won't be able to fund it.
Yeah, the Segra story is captured, and actually it's online in a white paper that, well, it was a research paper that Ahmed and I did in conjunction with you that kind of went into the process of it and the numbers to show where they were. The contribution of Segra to that noise was relatively small in the big scheme of things, but you drastically cut it down with the result of that one-on-one. But then as we looked at it over a period of time, like we've talked about before, people go out the door, that message is loud and clear for a month, 2 months, maybe new people come in, maybe the message starts to fade in their mind, and you start to see it creep back up. So it's like you have to stay vigilant with it consistently. But believe me, that project which you're talking about, when this room was filled up, we had about the capacity, we had about 70 people in this room. Every one of their contractors were in here, and they told them in no uncertain terms. That's actually one of the 2 pieces that I'm trying to put into this presentation for CGA about, when them becomes us. In other words, when we take responsibility, instead of saying, well, it's their job to do this or their job to do that, when we look at it, we say it's us. We all have a role in this together to make it work. And that's a success story, as is that gas project down in Onslow and Jones. But yeah. So I like your idea though of the 3-hour dissection, I guess you'll say. And I'll see what I can do just to try to maybe break down, maybe take the top 5 volume counties and try to break those down into categories of, could be work types and things like that too, that we can look at. Without looking at companies, is there a particular work type or type of utility that's not responding as fast? Is there a higher preponderance of electric versus telecom? I don't know. We won't know until we start to dissect it. But we could look at that and see, and I'll make a note to that, because Leslie always loves it when we have these meetings, because I always end up with a new report to ask her for. She's thrilled about that.
Thank you, sir.
All right, I don't know what the mapping was on there.
I didn't know if there was any new update or anything on the mapping or.
On the GIS,
Yeah.
Whether it's
Geologics?
plugged in, geologics.
Geologics. I'm sorry.
Last I heard that they were still running some tests, but I was expecting it should be up and running this month. So they must be in the final part of that.
I know that they're kind of doing it in stages. I did get the opportunity to look at it a little bit and the tools are there. They just look a little bit different when you're mapping your tickets, and you were able to see ortho. There's a lot of new features there that I think people are really going to enjoy.
Yeah, the clarity on those orthos is the other thing, because we had that layer before, like satellite layer, when we showed them side by side, the amount of detail that they're able to see now in the new one is way better. So if somebody's explaining, to the CSR about how to get somewhere, go down the road and see this, you can really actually see it on there, which
You
is,
see buildings a whole lot.
yeah, a lot of detail. So believe me, I think when that's engaged, we'll do a press release on that and shoot out our social media as well, on that one. And I talked a little bit already about this offender list for no call. Again, appreciate the people giving me those. We're sending out these letters, just reminding folks that they made the list, and just remind as a gentle reminder of their obligation under the law to notify before excavation. Also, another subtle general reminder that there is an enforcement arm in place, that this could be a violation that could be called out. Basically, it's as generic as that. But what I am going to add to that is to this next batch is letting folks know that there will be a survey being sent out to the people who made that list in 2022. And again, generic, just really trying to break down their reasons, their root cause, I guess you would say, for not calling. Because there's municipalities on there. There's plenty of folks on those lists that do call in other cases. So why didn't they call in that case? That's really what we want to find out. Scooting ahead to the, does anybody have any questions about that offender list for no calls? All right. I printed out some copies for the folks here, but I will let you know that this 2022 report is complete, and it's on the website as well under our incident analysis page. So you can go there and actually download this thing yourself. It's about 43 pages, and it's a collection of different types of research that we conducted in 2022. Part of it is the damage information, locate request trends, positive response trends. One of the things that we've seen, and this has been consistent over the years that we do these surveys with excavators, is that there seems to be a large amount of folks who are not checking positive response electronically, like the law requires them to do. They're relying, when we ask them how they knew what the situation was, they're relying on the marks. So one of the things that was created internally, and it's up on our YouTube site, is a video explaining positive response and the ways you can check it and your obligation to check it electronically, the ways that it'll come to you if you gave the email, etc. The question is, and the recommendation from Dr. Albayati was, if there was a way we could notify people after they create a ticket, if they're giving an email address, maybe it's a short email that follows that reminds them of the positive response, just gives them a link to the video to remind them that there's a legal obligation to check positive response prior to excavating. And here's a video that explains it if you don't know. And we're looking at trying to engage that for a short period of time. Obviously, we don't want to have emails flying out to people unnecessarily, but to see if it makes a difference in the numbers, because what we're seeing is a pretty large percentage. If you look at the graph on that, like page 9, positive response trend is a requirement. It breaks down the different types of codes as well. And this was the follow-up survey. And the surveys that we do, we're asking folks several questions. We want to know basically what their experience was with NC 811. Overall, what was their experience with the locate? Did they feel that the locate was accurate? And did they feel that the locate was on time? And we break that out into, this report breaks it all down by who we've had complete the survey, meaning homeowners versus contractors, and the survey numbers that we got back from them. And so the results of that are in here. We also are able to compare the years from 2022 back to 2020. This is kind of interesting due to the COVID, and to kind of look at the locate times and see where if it's getting better. There's a graph that breaks it down by 1 business day, 2 business days, 3 business days, and then 4 business days and more than 4 business days. The 2022 number, the trend there is not so great for 2022 versus 2021. And again, based on the sample survey that we did, always, whenever we talk about any of this stuff, always remember that this is only as valid as the number of people who completed it. He breaks down all the statistical stuff, the sample size, population, and whether it's statistically relevant in that in this report. But this verification of positive response, it's on page 23, actually. His recommendation is that we distribute this video that we've created via email or text message, because almost 70% of homeowners have indicated that they check the proposed area visually to verify positive. That's how they assume positive response is meant to be. So even if we isolated this video to just that one group, and again, this is something I wanted to discuss here, do we just send out to homeowners who give us an email address, send them up a follow-up behind the ticket with an email that reminds them what positive response is? I don't want to log up the CSR time with it, but versus sending it to like an ANSCO where they're already getting buried with a ton of emails as it is. Parsing it out. What does this group think about the idea of this? And I'm open to suggestions. I'm not trying to drive this bus.
Curious how long.
It's a,
Minute 44 seconds.
used in several of our training stuff.
Yeah. I don't see it.
Not dark. It just looks dark here.
Do you need to read?
I'll take a look at that too, about updating some stuff in there too.
Well, it would be helpful to
Yeah.
remind also that it's a statutory requirement
Yeah.
that positive response be checked. Because that's part of the thing that's kind of missing from that. And it could be put
Yeah.
into a note that's emailed out. Again, we could just isolate that to homeowners since that's the highest percentage number. And they're the ones that need the most information. As we come into like April and all that, we see the number of homeowners tick up.
Yeah.
And first-time callers, it could go to first-time callers only. There's a way that we could isolate it to that.
Mhm.
But what would be interesting to do, because we can track the number of times that a video has been viewed through the YouTube channel, so we can get stats on, once we start something like this, we can tell you the number, and we can also tell you, if we think it's correlating in some other way to better processing, in the field.
So Louis, we just had the Indiana 811 meetings yesterday, and I flew back last night, but yesterday we had the same exact topic that we talked about. And it was interesting because some of the largest contractors in the state of Indiana actually admitted, they said, you know what, we rarely ever check positive response. And it's just, it's just something that slows us down. We only use it when we believe that there's something that's missing. And then we're going to take a look at the list and see what does it actually say. So if you're only targeting homeowners, I'd have to say, I think there are probably a lot of contractors out there too, who just go off of, I see a lot of fresh paint out here. I don't see any pedestals or anything else that indicate that something's missing. I'm good to go. So a lot of the big boys even do that. Now we tell our contractors, don't do that because there's the unknowns. You don't know. There could be something in the ground that doesn't have a pedestal,
Right.
or whatever.
Does the Indiana law require the excavator to check?
It doesn't yet,
Okay.
but they know that it's there as a help.
Yeah.
So that is a big difference. It's not required by law yet. We're hoping that will be in 2024.
Because, that's the little bit of teeth there that could be deployed and we always struggle with the process explanation with the first-time callers and homeowners, the amount of time it takes to let them understand what we need to, and trying to understand specifically what's going to be the best information to give them at the right time.
And we know there are contractors out there that just have generic mailboxes that they dump all that stuff into. We know that's happening, but then we know there's, our Duke folks that they will not dig without clear positive response because we get the calls, hey, can you help? What can you do to help us? So we know it's working in some, but if we do identify that there's a contractor, and that's the whole point in the communication. If you can identify to us, hey, we're having issues with this one, will you speak with them? And we're happy to do that. But it does get inundated. I mean, mailboxes, every time a ticket, and if we're,
And if there's a glitch and for some reason it's sending out duplicates or something, we hear about that immediately
Yeah.
too. Because it's bogging down everybody's system as well. Some of the other things in this report have to do with our outreach efforts, and we asked folks how they found out about us and knew. So the effectiveness of the advertising methods have been tracked again year after year, media versus billboard versus print. One of the things he was looking for with the professional contractors as well is understanding of the SUE practice. And he found that there was a high, he did it with all of them. I mean, a high lack of awareness among homeowners, which makes sense. But even among the contractors, 62% that said that they weren't familiar with what SUE was. And so he was very concerned about that. I actually had modified this report from his original first one because I felt as if he was saying that means they don't know about damage prevention. I was like, well, that's one element of it. So I don't think you can throw that blanket over the whole thing. But yeah, it's something that's there for sure. And the last part about this, he looks into damage tickets and different characteristics, a lot of the stuff that we would see in the DIRT report as well. And one of the things that we were trying to determine is a risk matrix. So just for gas damages, if you look at page 40 on there, one of the concepts here is that we would be able to stamp a ticket at the time it's created with some kind of a number that lets the excavator know the potential risk and also the utility that receives the ticket, the potential risk for that ticket. I know there's companies out there, UrbanX one, I think there's a couple of others that are working with these risk models. But I think this is where we're headed when we can use AI and that kind of stuff to go back historically, see, is it not just the name of the contractor, but the type of work, the type of area that the work's taking place, type of equipment being used? Does that county have a higher relevant? And then essentially add some numerical weights to those things and spit out a number that tells you that that's a risky environment. So that's the other thing that's in this report that I think is interesting. But again, it's up there and available for folks to download. We have, I think it started in we started working with Ahmed, but every year this study is completed based on the surveys and that, and it is available on the web as well. So encourage people to check it out. Any questions, for sure, let me know. If there, again, this goes back to the reports and things too. If there's things in there that you see that you'd like to know more about or that we could explore more, let us know that too. With that, I'm going to give my voice a rest and kick it back to you for your Underground Review Board update.
Well, it was pretty short and quick yesterday. We had 5 cases. Dan's our new board member on there. So Dan's here today, Dan Robinette. So, well,
Congratulations.
Chris rolled off, and so Dan took that spot. We had 5 cases. It was interesting on these cases yesterday is we, kind of had some lacking of information. And so there were several cases that were dismissed. So just a reminder, if you are placing complaints, tell your story. Because, when we look at that information, we can only look at what's been given to us. So make sure you tell your story, provide us as much documentation to prove, if it's a non-emergency locate, that you feel like somebody's abusing the system, please try to tell your story such that we can make a clear, rule on it clearly. And if not, then we have to, in several, we showed that dismissed for insufficient evidence. So, 5 cases on that. And then we did approve our budget moving forward for 2023. So that budget is going to be 80,000 that will be spread among the top 50 versus the year before, which was 70. So it did go up just slightly, but otherwise it did come down. The law does allow for up to 200,000. So I think we're, really being good stewards of the money there. Right now, just, trying to look for a co-chair too as well. So we're working on that for that. And then we have updated our website. I would encourage you to go out. You can go to it from our website to go to the Underground Review Board, but we do have all the minutes out there now. And we are in the process of linking all the cases to the dockets. So there is a current, and I'll show you guys on the website. Let me share this with you for those that are online. Okay, so when you're on the home page, if you'll notice here, you can go to it as a quick link for the meeting minutes, or you can go to it here under about the board, and you'll see all the documents. All the minutes are there, and you click on it, and I'll just click on one and it'll show you that. So all the minutes are there if you're interested in looking at that. And then the other resource that we are trying to link is this button here, check the status of a complaint. So we met with the gentleman, and currently the way we just connected the RSS feed off of the Utility Commission docket system. And you'll notice this is the oldest, so down to the newest. So if you're wanting to see maybe some of the most recent cases and you're wanting to see, what happened, this one is linked. You'll see it says case 450. So you can find it that way. As soon as they finish up the solution, then this portion will change. But at least right now, this will give you an idea. If you want to search case 455, it is tied to the docket number as such. And then you can see the documents that have been posted out there. And so that's pretty easy information for you right there. But that should change hopefully in the upcoming months as we get that built out.
Yeah, I might have missed this, but what kind of backlog are y'all looking at?
So right now, my understanding is that we have a few cases that are sitting out there. One of the issues we're having is with the post office is when COVID hit, you could do priority mail. You could, send it out from the office, but we're not getting the return signed cards. So that's one of the reasons we only had 5 cases yesterday, because she's trying to get that, cleared up so that those cases can be released so that we can hear them. But I don't think it's tremendous. It's not tremendous amount of cases, but, I guess compared to the time before, Chris, you were there. I wasn't there the last meeting. Was there a ton of cases in October? Yeah, it wasn't. It was the month before that we had probably 15. Yeah, the quarter before that we had a ton. But, once again, tell your story, make sure all your information is correct. All right. And that's all I have. Anything you want to add, Dan, or from a new member perspective?
How many people were here live for that meeting of the board? Just curious, how many people was Freddie here, or was he on?
Freddie was online. One of the things that we've asked is trying to determine how much longer do we want to keep it hybrid, for the members. And so at least through, I think, the third quarter, allow a hybrid, and then, see if we can bring people, totally back on. And then I did offer up our location here. So I don't know, there was maybe 8 or 9, here.
Pretty
And then the
substantial.
rest were
It's a
on.
quorum anyway.
Oh, yeah, we had a quorum. All right, that's all I have there.
Moving down to the project coordination.
Two people here.
I'll just kind of leave this kind of open-ended, don't we? Just if anybody has any
Pretty much.
project update. I know for me, it's difficult to kind of speak to major projects. A lot of the stuff is kind of reactive type stuff, for like the DOT stuff and everything. I think, just in general, project coordination for the locators out there, would just be to try to contact those folks. If it's a due, thing, just reach out to them and start working on it. They've got those 100, 200 tickets, just try to call them, set something up. So, but I don't know if anybody else is on the line for Duke, if they have anything specific for any major projects, but we just open it up to roundtable to major projects, and then we can go to like a general update discussion. So feel free to chime in if you have any major projects you want to discuss. No projects.
It's
There's
amazing.
nothing, there's
It's
nothing
amazing
going
the
on.
ticket volume is where it is with no major projects happening, but,
So just an update for everyone. I started 2 weeks ago. I'm trying to make it around to every single one of our cities, which is going to be difficult, as best I can do it. And I'm trying to reemphasize to everyone our principles, our how we operate, who we are. And the number one thing is how we partner with the locators, and it's partnership with the utilities as well. We're a partner. We don't beat up on them, and how we need to coordinate and communicate and all of that. So hopefully here in the state of North Carolina, I'm actually going to hit Batesville tomorrow, and the other cities hopefully fairly soon. if there are any issues in those areas, hopefully you'll see a little bit of a turnaround. Just to reemphasize with them, they know what it is, but sometimes, like, they just need a kick in the pants to remind them, this is who we are, and they're our partners. They're not just some group out there that you're gonna yell about or beat up. We're gonna work for them.
So George, I know you mentioned at the state UCC that North Carolina was going to be one of your most aggressive states. Have you been able to determine other cities that you're going to be going into this
Yeah.
year?
I was actually surprised because I thought that a majority of the construction was going to be under our big major city emphasis, but I found out that we've actually got a special projects groups in the state of North Carolina that are building out small events in the state, because I did not know that we were in one, that one of your folks actually contacted me about. And that when I finally started doing some digging, I realized, oh, it's just a little special projects group in that city
Gotcha.
building out something small. Usually they're commercial groups is what they're doing. But no, I don't have any of those yet. I'm still asking them to try to get that to me.
Is that great thing there?
How about Don now? You start down there, Don.
For the open discussion? So we're on for that now?
You know, since someone's talking.
Yeah. Projects are slack, so we'll move on, and go to, just an open discussion for updates. I'm just gonna go down the list. So we'll go to, AT&T. Any updates for AT&T?
Hey, this is Doug. No, nothing, no major updates to relay today. But like I said, things are still busy. Just like Dan said, when it comes to major projects, it's kind of hard thing to discuss. But it's yeah, just busy as we can be.
Anything to add?
Just echo what Doug said, same thing here, just, we're business as usual. Charlotte, we do see a little uptick in Charlotte coming up in the next, couple months, but, besides that, pretty much the same.
When you say a little uptick,
Nothing major, I'd say probably 10%, probably.
okay.
Sure, Dan's glad to hear that.
10% little.
10%, that's not much, is it?
That's little.
You can handle that.
We're probably holding 1,200, so extra 120 tickets.
Yeah.
How about P&G?
I think Jim jumped off. I don't see Jim.
Okay. Duke update, we'll check on this morning, but, we are set up. We talked earlier a little bit about one of our contractors on the list here, which I'm sure they work for other people, but utility lines, construction there. We are going to meet with them on the 2nd here. And we're gonna, have a powwow with them and see what we can learn for, all these update tickets, not just those, short duration, but just overall. I mean, there's just astronomical amount of, update tickets for them. So we're gonna meet with them hopefully in their facility and kind of chat with them and see if we can figure things out. And then another alarming thing that just noticed down here was even our tickets, with 290 updates of 2 or more times, and 157 of those are the short duration. So not sure what's going on with that there. I know we just revisited our process, so there may be a problem somewhere. So I'll see if I can't dig into that report, which I didn't get it. I need you to resend it to me.
Okay.
Do you think it's like, when we look at work types, I mean, do you think it's pole setting or something possibly, or weren't you guys on a big pole placement project or something?
Yeah, everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just curious if what you might find that to be.
Yeah, there shouldn't really be, honestly, I was expecting us to not be so high on.
You're talking about the 157?
Yeah,
the one that- yeah.
on the list at all.
We can look at those after.
Yeah, so I'll dig into those and see, but yeah, big news story is the meeting with ULCS, trying to figure that out and go from there, so. I don't know if anybody else is on the line with Duke. Move down to, Segra. I spoke earlier, but
Mhm.
Thank you. I don't have anything to do to the room. All covered it. Thank you.
all right, thanks, sir. Dominion?
This is Mark. I don't know of any big system enhancement projects we have going on. We don't have any retiree new projects. I know we did do a little steel stuff in part of Wake County to keep up, but overall, we're just trying to keep up with the growth. We don't have anything else big going on at the moment. Ticket count was down a little bit last year, but barely. Ticket count in November and December were up compared to the previous year. And like I said, our damage ratio is the lowest damage ratio we've had. It was still 1.42, but we have some room, but that's a whole lot better than we were 10 years ago.
Hey,
And talking
Cor-
about update tickets, and I will get a report back out to our operations group in February. I tell you, our contractors are just as bad as anybody else. I would say a fourth of their tickets are update tickets that are for short-term install service line, retiring new service line, those types of things. It'd be 4 hours of work. And I don't get that part. And I've let our operations guys know a few times, and I'll use 222 data to express my feelings again. I don't know if Richard has anything.
No, you pretty much summed it up.
Cool.
I don't know of any big projects we got going.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Anybody else for Google?
Court, you're working for Google, right?
Yeah, we work for Google, but I can't speak for them, but I can speak for ITS. I mean, we're busy and things are going well, not really having a lot of issues.
Anybody from DOT? And then George, I know we can do already, but Metro Devon, if they have anything else. And any others that we might have missed that want to have anything, any updates or projects or anything of the sort?
How about Dawn?
Spectrum has the RDOF project going and then some state grants going. A lot of rural areas that we're building out there. It's fiber optic, so it's not something that can be glued back together in a few seconds. But that's just wide open.
The biggest story there. Everybody's just looking at the themes here, so, okay. Anybody else online? Any kind of update or discussion?
Hey, this is Billy Webster with Williams Cardinal Pipeline. No major, we don't have any major projects this year, at least on the Cardinal lateral. But did have a question. I shot a message to our kind of, as you call it, our corporate damage prevention office at the beginning of the meeting, because we have like an internal mechanism for reporting like anybody working in our easements or working nearby without one cause, and we submit dirt forms with those. But I was asking if you guys got a copy of that, and they said that they get submitted annually to the CGA, which obviously you guys would then get. But should we be doing anything different just for y'all's sake, to be able to know what's going on out there? I don't know what that looks like from the CGA at the end of the year, if it just comes in as like a number or if you get all the information.
Yeah, I'll have to look and see if y'all are data sharing with us. I'm not sure if you are or not. I don't think that you are doing a data share. What that would mean would be that as you put your stuff in for dirt, we would have that information to go alongside our numbers and your reports would be accessible to us. Otherwise, it's just aggregated all together with the national. If you want to get on board with some of this stuff that we're doing in terms of letters from me and potentially survey some of those folks, you could certainly shoot me a list of those damages. Typically, we're doing quarterly, or at least with every couple of months after these meetings. And then I just basically take that list and send a pretty generic letter out to them. But we have seen that at least to jars, it's just another angle of getting information to folks. So
Yeah,
if you,
we send out similar letters when we have those.
Hmm.
It does seem to at least, like I said, help or stir the pot a little bit. But I'll follow up with those guys and see if we want to change anything. But I guess since we have that mechanism, like we don't need to then do like the dirt light forms, that would kind of be doubling up.
Yeah, you don't need to do that, but what we do need to do is find out if you're granting us access to the data. And I can check that. We can check that pretty quickly and easily. And if you're not, then I'll send you an email and just ask that you do that. We can actually send a request through Dirt to them.
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, sir.
All right, any others online? Okay. I would just check with the locators of if we're running a couple in here and Robert telling anything from you guys? Any update wise or anything we could do to help that you could see from your perspective?
Robert. Chance. I mean, not that I can think of. As far as in Mecklenburg, the communication has been a lot better. Luke has gotten involved, Spectrum. A lot of our customers have kind of facilitate meetings with contractors that we were having issues with. They were having issues with us, whatever the case may be. And, over the last few months, I feel like it's gotten a lot better. Tim is always helpful with Vansco and their subs. I think that communication piece is the most important. It seems to be getting better month over month. So I look forward to seeing what 2023 is.
Yeah, definitely. Cool, thank you.
Hey, Dan, this is Robert. It's kind of echoing what Chris Rush said on the top of the call, like Metronet, they got presence all over North Carolina, and we have a pretty regular cadence with them on a weekly call. And as big as the scope and scale is for, those guys, it's working out really well because they're taking responsibility beyond that. I called it a ticket. Why isn't it marked? Right. So that's definitely a success story. 50%, north of 50% being what we consider project tickets. Like to Dan's point, we just can't encourage enough how important it is to communicate. And, of course, you and I spoke via email many, many times. So appreciate all the efforts on your end, and Doug Hayes as well on the AT&T side. A lot of projects in Johnson County, Wayne County, but just encourage your contractor, if you're a utility member, owner, encourage your folks that you're giving the bids to make sure they take responsibility beyond just, calling the tickets.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Any others? Okay, that's it. That's all I got. Well, the next meeting, we're gonna have March 15th. Still keeping it hybrid, so keep it virtual and in here. March may be a little bit warmer, so it won't be as cold in here.
Is it cold? Is that door open? No. I bumped it up just.
It says it's 70 in here.
Must be a cold spot over here, I guess.
Is it cold up?
All right, well, thank y'all for joining us online there. You know, been on for a while, so just ask that you take a moment and kind of assess your areas before you take on to your next task there. So thank y'all for your time. Now, that'll end us all.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.